We're doing Module 8, Lesson 1, and this is on the rise of Islam. Now, Islam, as you guys were just now telling me, with what background information you have, somebody said that it is in the Middle East, and that's exactly right. It began on the Arabian Peninsula. Now, you can see on the figure on the left, that's in green, that's the Arabian Peninsula. Right here. It's part of Asia, but it's very close to other ancient civilizations like Egypt, which is right here, Greece, Italy, and Israel. Also, India is not too far, and Mesopotamia is definitely important. Okay, so but if you look at it, if you look at the physical map, you'll see that it's a peninsula. What makes it a peninsula?
Surrounded by sea on 3 sides.
That's exactly right. It has water on 3 sides. And it's the Red Sea to the west, the Persian Gulf to the northeast, and the Gulf of the Arabian Sea on the far east. Okay, so but it's an area of land that juts out into and is surrounded by water. But the actual land area itself, what do you notice a lack of? Green. So what would that indicate if there's not a lot of green?
Desert.
It's a desert. And what makes a desert a desert?
Sand.
Sand and the lack of
Rain.
water, rain. Okay? So it is a desert land that lacks rivers, streams, lakes, not very much water on the Arabian Peninsula.
What's the other body of water? The Gulf of...
This is the Arabian Sea. It's like I think that's the Gulf of Eden.
Okay.
The Red Sea, Persian Gulf, Arabian Sea. Okay. All right. Now, as you would imagine, do you think it's easy to live on this land mass called the Arabian Peninsula? It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough. And the first people to really be able to do it are called Bedouins. Bedouins. And there are still Bedouins today. A Bedouin is a nomad. You should remember from Module 1, what is a nomad?
Someone without a home. They wander.
Why do they wander? For the
Because
exercise?
they look for food.
That's exactly right. They're always on the move looking for food, and in particularly on the Arabian Peninsula, they're looking for water, okay, because it's very scarce. So Bedouins are nomads that move from place to place in search of food and water. Now, it's easier to survive if you organize yourself into a group or a tribe. And Bedouins would organize themselves into tribes and select one person to lead that tribe. And the person that they would choose is called a sheik. Sheik. So a sheik is simply a tribal leader, the leader of a tribe. Now I'm telling you this because it's important to know how the Arabians and the Bedouins organize themselves, because it's going to be important as to how Islam spreads on the Arabian Peninsula. Okay? Now, before Islam even came about, which was around the year 622 AD, like 600 years after Jesus, and like 1400 years ago for us, okay? Before it existed, most of the people that lived on the Arabian Peninsula, most of these Bedouins, were polytheistic. What does that mean? They believed in many gods. But they also recognized that there was a main God, and they called that God Allah, A-L-L-A-H, Allah. They recognized one main God, and they called that God Allah. All right? That is the Arabic word for God, Allah, A-L-L-A-H. Okay, so that's a little backstory. And then a man is born, and his name is Muhammad. Muhammad. Muhammad was born in a place called Mecca. You ever heard of Mecca? Okay. It's on the Arabian Peninsula. It's in Saudi Arabia. That's the country it's in today. And he was born to a merchant family, meaning his family were traders. They bought and sold items at market to make money. But his parents died at a very young age, when he was 6. And he was raised by family. And when he grew up, he married wealthy. He married an extremely rich woman. And the reason why she was rich is because her husband died, and she inherited his fortune. So he married a wealthy widower. A widower is a woman whose husband has died. And so that makes Muhammad wealthy, because he would take control of all that woman's property upon marriage. It's a very patriarchal society, meaning dominated by men. And much like his parents, he also engaged in being a merchant, buying and selling things at a market. And at the markets, he started to be really bothered by something. And the thing that bothered him most was seeing people who had lots of money and were willing to take advantage of people that had nothing to make more. He had a big problem with greed. And there was a large gap at these markets between honest people who do people right and treat them well, and greedy people. And it bothered him. And he wondered, what could he do to fix this big gap between the honest people and the greedy people? And so he began to meditate, pray. And he would go out into the hills that overlook Mecca, where he could have privacy. And one day, while he was meditating in the hills, he was visited by an angel. And the angel's name was Gabriel. You guys know of anything else Gabriel has done? What?
He told a family in the Bible that they were going to have a baby.
That's right. Mary. Yeah.
I was about to say a family.
Yeah. Well, the Holy Family, sure. She's right. She's 100% right. It's the same angel. Same angel Gabriel. Okay? So Gabriel's been around. And Gabriel visits Muhammad and basically says that, Muhammad, you are a prophet of God. And not only that, you are the last prophet of God. You are the last person God will give revelations to. And that this is the last time that God will reveal anything else to humans. All right? So, Muhammad's, pretty pumped he's meeting an angel. And for about a month, Muhammad spends about a month with the angel Gabriel. And during that time, all the revelations that Muhammad receives, he begins to write down. He begins to write it down, and then he compiles it into a book. And that book is called the Quran. The Quran, okay? You can say Quran or Quran. They're both right, okay? So, imagine being Muhammad. You just spent a month with the angel Gabriel telling you that you are a prophet, that you're the last prophet that will ever exist, and that God wants to tell you a bunch of information, and then he wants you to spread it throughout the world. How would you feel if you were Muhammad? Stressed? Why? All right, tell me why you feel stressed. Well, you said stress. You got a reason.
I mean,
Does he have a big responsibility?
yes.
Yes. What happens if he fails? Who does he disappoint? God. Pretty big, huh? Pretty big responsibility. And so the angel Gabriel leaves Muhammad and tells him to go out and spread this message. And so Muhammad does, and he tries to convert others. And for 3 years, he busts his butt and works super hard in the city of Mecca. And after 3 years of dedicating his life to spreading this message, he has 30 followers. Basically, his family. His wife was the first Muslim. She's the first convert. Okay? How would you feel if after 3 years of all the humans on earth, you got 30?
Defeated.
You are shamed. You are discouraged. You're defeated. You're disappointed. You don't feel good about yourself at all. Your self-esteem is in the toilet. And there weren't even toilets then. Okay? So, he said,
Then where did they go?
probably like in a latrine, which is just a ditch. Yeah. All right. But at least it's dry. You know, it's like kitty litter, right? All right. So Muhammad, after 3 years of work, he has 30 followers. He's discouraged and ashamed. And he's like, well, I got to try something different. So he leaves Mecca. He leaves Mecca, which is here, and he goes to another town called Medina, just to the north of Mecca. There, Medina is not like Mecca. Medina is like a pit stop town where Bedouins would find, like that's like a place where Bedouins would stop, resupply, find water, and then they would go out again. And so there's constantly people coming and going from Medina. And basically, with these sand people, with these Bedouins, he's able to talk with them and convert them, and then they leave, and then a new group come in the next day. And he had and he talked about Allah, and these are things that were familiar to them. The people of Mecca were like, "Get out of here, Muhammad! You're crazy. You know, you've been gone for a month. Where you been? You know." But the people of Medina were very open to him, and very quickly he attracted a large group of followers, and pretty soon he had like 10,000 converts. Very quickly, within a year. So that being said, he wants to go back to Mecca and show those people that they were wrong. And so he arms all of his followers, and they march to Mecca and basically force everyone there to convert. Okay? This is called a jihad. A jihad. These are non-believers, and we are going to force them to be believers. All right? It's called a jihad. They are getting in the way of Allah, and so, needless to say, the people of Mecca converted very quickly. They converted very quickly. Now, that is a very rare instance. Not everybody is Muslim is forced at knife point to become a Muslim. But that's called a jihad, okay? Now, when Muhammad travels to Medina after his shame and discouragement, there's a word for that. It's called a hijrah. And then when he returns to Mecca and conquers it, that's called jihad. Okay, I think these are vocabulary words, and I'm going over them with you slowly because they're weird looking. They're not English words. Hijrah, jihad.
What's Hijrah?
Hijrah is when Muhammad leaves Mecca and goes to Medina. That's his hijrah. When he returns to Mecca and conquers it, that is called jihad. Holy war, basically. Okay. So, what's the stuff in this book? What is in this Quran? There are some revelations that were given by God. There's also like just stories. There's also stories. There's stories that, mention like Adam and Eve, and stories that mention like Moses. There's even Jewish prophets in here. Okay? I'm pretty sure it even mentions Jesus. But Muslims don't see Jesus as divine. Just he was a prophet, just like Muhammad. And Muhammad was just a man. That's how they view Jesus, okay? They don't even see Muhammad as a as divine. Muhammad was just a man. He's not a god. They don't worship Muhammad, not in any way, shape, or form. Muslims only worship God, Allah. Okay? But in this, there are basically 5 pillars. 5 pillars. What's a pillar? Is that what you lay your head on at night to go to sleep? Yeah. What's a pillar? A column. And what does a column? What's a pillar do? It supports something. So these are the 5 things that are the principles, the basis, the foundation for their religion. Okay? All right. So first, I know you probably can't read this very well, but the first is called a declaration of faith. They declare their faith verbally, daily, when they pray. This declaration basically says there is only one God. His name is Allah, and Muhammad is his last and greatest prophet. They just say it every day. All right? Muslims believe in extreme monotheism. Extreme monotheism. So extreme that there are no images of Muhammad because they would be fearful that people might worship him. So there's no images of Muhammad. There's no paintings, no portraits. There's no images. Okay? So extreme monotheism. They would even say that Christians are not monotheists because they have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They would say that that's 3. They say only the Father. Only the Father. Okay? Extreme monotheism. There is only one God, and Muhammad is his last and greatest prophet. That's the first pillar of Islam. The second pillar, this says obligatory prayer. What does the word obligatory mean? If I say it is obligatory for you to do your homework, what does that mean? You have to do it. They have to do it. How many times a day are Muslims required to pray? 5. 5 times a day. And their prayer must be done in a very specific way. They must face the city of Mecca. Face the city of Mecca, no matter where you are on earth. If you're in Coal City, West Virginia, you have to find where the city of Mecca is on earth and face it. So if here you probably face the east. Okay? So you face the city of Mecca. You have to cover your head and remove your shoes. And you pray 5 times a day. Okay? It is what is required. All right? So obligatory prayer. Third, almsgiving. This says compulsory giving. Also known as almsgiving. You guys know what that means? What is almsgiving? This is where you are required to give to the poor. Unless you are the poor, then you don't have to. But it is required. If you are a wealthy person, you have to give 2.5% of your money to the poor. If you are just like a farmer, then you have to give 10 to 25% of all your crops to charity. You donate it. You give it to people. All right? And don't think that they do this through their church or their, it's done on your own. Okay? They do have churches. They're called mosques. But there's not like church leadership. Okay, there are people.
It's like a free-for-all thing?
It's not. I don't want to call it a free-for-all, but they do have leaders. But it's mostly the sheiks are the leaders, and they're not really religious leaders. They're cultural leaders, and that evolves over time. We'll learn more about that next time. I might be getting ahead of myself. It's a different culture. It totally is a different culture. But guys, like if you live in a Muslim country, there's no taxes. You don't have to pay taxes because the wealthy people take care of everything. Like you need a new road, the wealthy people pay for it. Okay? There's no taxes. Well, where do the wealthy people get their money on the Arabian Peninsula?
The trading.
What commodity do they have a lot of? They have more of this than water. Oil. Oil.
I was about to say sand.
Oil.
Sand.
Oil.
I was like,
Oil.
yeah.
All right, so it is required to give. You must take care of the poor. Fourth is called fasting at the month of Ramadan. Ramadan is a month-long holiday that recognizes and celebrates the time period of which Muhammad received the Quran from the angel Gabriel. They celebrate it every year. Okay? It's a month long. Now, the way in which they celebrate the traditional month where Muhammad receives the Quran is there is no eating or drinking of anything during daylight hours. So if the sun is up, no food, no water. Now, if you have diabetes or you're pregnant or you're sick, it's okay. Nothing's going to happen. It's okay. You're forgiven. But if you're healthy and you're able to, and during the month of Ramadan, no eating or drinking during daylight hours. It's called fasting. Fasting. They do not eat or drink. You know what fasting is? Don't eat or drink. That's why when you eat your first meal of the day, it's called what? Breakfast, because you're breaking the fast. You're eating. And that's what, you're no longer fasting. That's why it's called breakfast. Okay? So, but they do this for an entire month. No eating or drinking during daylight hours. What happens when the sun goes down? It's a celebration. We have a feast. Okay? And they celebrate. They do this for an entire month. Okay? All right. Fifth pillar is you must make a pilgrimage to Mecca. What is a pilgrim? If you are a pilgrim, what are you? A traveler for what purpose? A religious purpose. A person who travels for religious reasons is a pilgrim. So if I were to say, hey guys, we're going to take a field trip and we're going to go to see a church, we would be pilgrims. Okay? We would be pilgrims. Now, if we were going to, the youth museum, we're just tourists. Okay? So a pilgrim is a tourist with a religious reason. Okay? So, if you are required to make a pilgrimage to Mecca, what does that mean?
You have to go there once in your life.
You have to go once in your life. What if you live in West Virginia? You got to go once in your life. Everybody must go to Mecca once in their life. This pilgrimage to Mecca is called a Hajj, H-A-J-J. Hajj, H-A-J-J. You must go to Mecca at least once in your life. Okay? So these are the 5 pillars. The declaration of faith, which you say when you pray 5 times a day, take care of the poor, fast in the holy month of Ramadan. You got to go to Mecca once in your life. Now, is this the entire faith? No, this is the foundation. This is the basic thing. There's tons of guidelines on morality and culture and the way you live your life and the way you treat others and the way men and women relate to each other. We're only going to be able to scratch the surface on that in the next few days, okay? But a few other guidelines, like that the Muslims follow, there's absolutely no gambling. No gambling is allowed. Why? Why would no gambling be allowed? Or gambling not be allowed? What happens when you gamble? You lose. You lose. You never hear about, very rarely do you hear about people gambling and like, I'm a millionaire now, yay. So I'm gambling and I've lost all my money. Well, this is money that could be spent on what? The poor. It could, money that you could have given in alms. So no gambling is allowed. Money that was lost. There's no gambling because it's money that is seen as lost that could have been used in the name of Allah to help people. No pork. Oh, man. No pork. Why no pork? Pigs are seen as nasty, unclean animals. Bacon, ham, pork chops. Yeah. Lots of sausage. Lots of stuff. All right, so who cares? It's an unclean animal. Big whoop. What's the big deal about that?
That means they're putting unclean things in their body.
You are. It's kind of like, this is very general, but I'm not going to say the Muslims say you are what you eat. But in essence, they do not want anything unclean to be associated with them. What are the characteristics of a pig?
Mud.
Okay, they live their entire life in mud and slop. They're disgusting. What else?
They basically eat garbage.
They will eat absolutely any. They'll eat their own poo, right? They're filthy. What else makes bacon taste better? I guess. Lazy. Pigs do no work. You cannot train a pig to do work. Like, you could train a cow to pull something. It's called an ox. All right? I mean, pigs do nothing. They live in their entire life in slop and mud, and that is it. In fact, they have no ability to sweat. And so that's why they have to roll in the mud all the time. All right? They dislike sunlight because their inability to sweat. They don't want to get hot because it can kill them if they get too hot. So they'll eat anything. They're dirty. They'll eat more than they need. That's called gluttonous. They'll overeat. These characteristics are not something that are desirable. Okay? And so, in addition, in the year 622, if you're living in the desert, what happens if you eat rotten pork? It's going to make you sick. Or what happens if you just eat pork that's not cooked correctly? You ever gone to the restaurant and said, I want the pork chops? And they say, how you want them cooked? It's either done or you die, right? Have you ever eaten raw bacon? Why is it so dangerous to eat not cooked all the way pork?
The bacteria.
It carries disease. You can get diseases like trichinella and salmonella and tuberculosis and worms, hookworms, tapeworms. All of these things travel in pig meat. Now, who's ready for a big bacon sandwich, right? Now, imagine you live in a place where there's no refrigerators. There's no refrigerators, okay?
How do they keep it cold?
They
Do they eat meat at all?
Yes.
Then how do they keep the other?
Salted. It's salt. Lots of salted meat. And plus, they could dehydrate it very easily because it's very dry there in the desert.
Put it in the sand.
Yeah. Well, maybe not put it in the sand, but they would dehydrate it, okay? No intoxicants. All intoxicants are forbidden in the Muslim world. Why? Why no drugs or alcohol?
That makes you do goofy things.
And what are you supposed to do basically all day long?
Pray.
Pray. You're going to pray to Allah, drunk or high? No intoxicants are allowed. It makes you forgetful. You may not pray as much. You may forget to pray because it makes you forgetful. Okay? Another aspect of Islam is called the Sunnah. Sunnah. Sunnah is one of the messages contained in the Quran. It talks about what your goal is, what your mission in life is. Receive the Quran and demonstrate it. Receive the Quran and demonstrate it in your own life. That is called the Sunnah. So you know how we talked about in Hinduism, nirvana was the goal? In Islam, Sunnah is the goal. Learn what's in the book and live it. It's not too dissimilar from Christianity. Learn what's in the book and live it. It's very simple, okay? They just have a word for it. It's called Sunnah. A final guideline I'd like to tell you about is called the Sharia. The Sharia. Sharia. All right, now, in America, we have the separation of church and state, meaning our religion is not tied to our government. That is not the case in the Muslim world. Religion and government are the same. They are the same, okay? And so there are laws associated with the Quran. If you don't obey some of these laws, you can be punished. So it's almost like they can, like, when you violate your religion, another religion, that's called sinning. It's a sin. Sins in the Muslim world can be punished. They're punishable offenses, okay, by the government. So, there are laws created based upon the teachings of the Quran. The things that have to do with the way married people live. Like a man can have 3 wives in Muslim culture. A woman can have 1 husband, all right? But it's kind of a status symbol. The more wives you have, the more money you have, because you have to purchase them. Like you have to pay. You pay the woman's father. It's called a dowry, and so it's very expensive. And the more wives that you have, it's a symbol that you have more money. Okay. Business life. The way a business is conducted. What was Muhammad's job?
Oh, wait, no,
He was a merchant. A merchant today would be a businessman, right? Yeah. So business life of Muslims are also highly regulated by the Quran and laws made, and those laws that are contained in the Sharia. Now, this all sounds very strange to us because it's different. It's just different, okay? But do you guys have questions? I know you probably do. Tomorrow you'll do your activity, and if you can think of some more questions, don't hesitate to ask me. And if anybody at home has questions, don't hesitate to ask me. All right, so that is all.